Hi everyone, this is Lori from My File Addiction. Today I'm going to go over some settings that I recommend being changed in your Silhouette program compared to what the default setting would be when you first upload the program. So if you're not sure of where your settings are at, if you select your Edit tab here at the top upper left, you select on that and go down to Preferences. You will have a box that pops up, and each one of these are different tabs, and I'm going to go through each of these tabs and kind of give you what I recommend that you use to kind of make your workflow a little bit easier. So the first one that's going to pop up is just general, and basically that's you're selecting your language. You can change your default to where your files are saved. I have it set to hard disk, which means it will save on my hard drive. Some of you might want to select library. I think it defaults to library, but the only thing is, I've heard of people losing designs in their library, so if you have library checked, I don't believe it saves as on your hard drive either. So I have even if I were to lose my hard drive, I have a backup called Dropbox, which stores all my files in the cloud, and so I will never lose my files even if my computer crashes. So there's drawbacks to both of them, but you select whatever works best for you. Unit of measure, you can go in here and change to different units. Most people want it to default to inches. Show dimensions, I believe that means when you select an item, it will show the measurements, the width and the height of the design. Print resolution, I do not have the cutter, so I do not know about any of these settings or any of the other cut settings. I just have the software program. I have the business edition, so you're going to have to play around with these if you want to change these. Anytime you make any changes in any of these tabs, you got to make sure you select the apply option, and then when you're done you can select OK, and it should save all your changes. Next one is going to be the defaults tab here. Page orientation, I just have it set to automatic. You have a choice of either landscape or portrait. Basically, when you bring in, if you have it set to automatic, when you bring in a design, it's going to fit your page to whatever the design is set up. So this particular design behind me here is set up for landscape, or it comes in landscape, so it makes my page landscape. Blade type, you can change this if you use a certain type of blade. This will automatically set it as your blade setting, so you don't have to do it in your cut settings if you want, or you can leave it at automatic and then change those options in your cut settings. I have my default fill style to solid. That means all of my designs that come in will come in with a fill color. You can set it to outline if you don't want any color to show, and it will just show the outline of the object or the design that you bring in. I do not have any of these checked, but you can play around with these if you want. You want to check something, and just write down what the original setting was. If you change any of these, write down what the original setting was, change it, and then go and see how it performs. If you don't like the way any of these that you make changes to, you can come back in and change it back to the default setting, and it corrects that issue. So nothing is written in stone. But right now I do not have any of these checked, but if you want to go ahead and check any of these boxes and see what they do, go ahead and do that. I have my panel mode is set to multi-panel mode, which means I can select any of these panels over here, and I can bring up multiple panels and they stay they stay up. So if I wanted to bring up, the rhinestone panel and maybe my, let's see, maybe my warp panel, I can have both those panels showing. So you have a couple options here. Single panel, which would only allow you to bring up one at a time. Flexible panel, I'm not quite sure what that is, but you know what, let's try it. Flexible panel, I'm going to select apply and select OK. So let's try, I'm going to bring up this panel. So it doesn't look like it allows me to bring up more than one panel at a time. Oh, it does. Maybe you have to click and drag them. So that might have to be, if you want more than one panel to show up, you have to actually move it. Whereas, let's click out of these here. If we go back into those preferences, go back into defaults. If I were to select multi-panel, apply, OK. If I bring up, see how they stack them. So that might be the difference between, excuse me, flexible and multi-panel. This still allows me to bring a panel over here, and I still can, bring up multiple panels if I want to. Okay, so that's what that does. So I'm gonna X out of here, go back and edit preferences, and we were in display. No, I'm sorry, we were in defaults. Okay, like I said, I do not have any of the cutters, so I do not have any of these options checked. You might want to, this is, has to do with your cutting device, so you might want to select these and see what those do. Okay, so the next tab is display. I have not changed this. I don't know exactly what it does. I think it defaults to 8 samples, so I've just left it at that. You can change the color of your theme to light or dark. Mine's set at light. Your background color, you can change that to light, gray, or dark. Mine's just set at current theme. Button sizes, I'm kind of halfway in between here, which allows me, it changes the size of these icons. If you pick too large of an icon, you select that, select apply, you start losing some of your panels here. You actually have to select the arrow over here in order to display the hidden panels that don't show up anymore. So I found that if I select a medium for my screen, excuse me, hit apply, and that allows me to see all of my panels, and I can visually see the icons pretty well. Animation, I'm not sure what this does. Mine's set at fast. Curve quality, mine's set at 0. Again, I'm not sure what this does, if this has to do with the editing tools here. But it might be when you're actually using the tools to draw certain lines, you might get maybe a better quality curve by, the higher the number. I don't do too much designing in this program, so I don't know much about that, but you can try those. Obviously, it requires a restart for your computer for this option, also this one up here too. So if you do check it and you hit apply, you're going to have to shut your computer down in order for that to take an effect. The next one is your import option. Okay, this is very important that you have these import options set to centered. I'm working in the business edition of the program, so I have 3 options because I have the SVG here. If you have the designer edition, you should also have 3 options. The basic edition, you probably will only have these 2 top options. You want to make sure whatever options you have, they are all set to centered. if you have them selected to fit to page, what that's going to do is when you bring in your file, it's going to shrink your design and make it fit to your page size. Okay, so if your page size is set up for 12 by 12, 12 by 24 for your mat sizes, it's going to take that design and it's going to shrink it to fit inside that page size. And for rhinestone designs, you do not want that to happen, because you want the design to come in at the size that the designer has made it, so the circles cut the correct size holes for the stone size that is listed. If it shrinks it, the circles also shrink. So now if you were to cut it, the holes would cut at the incorrect size. So coming through here and changing these all to centered, I believe some of the DXF options, the default option setting is automatically set to fit to page. So go ahead and do that. You can also set your cut lines. So if you don't want to, in your cut screen, if you didn't want to have to select your cut option all the time, you can come in here and set that, or you can, change it to no cut, or if you wanted to only cut an edge, which means if you were to cut this design with the boxes around them, basically it would put your cut lines only around the box. It would not cut the individual circles in the inside. So whether your cut option will cut everything, the box and the individual circles. So again, if you change anything on here, select apply. Tools, I have all these set to continue. So that means if I was creating a shape, it would continue to be in that mode until I select my my selection tool over here, the arrow in the upper left hand corner. So all of these options would continue to be in that mode until I select that. If you want to be able to just draw a shape and then it would go immediately to the select mode option, you can change that to choose select. Okay, so after zooming, I have choose select. I don't have where it's continually zooming. This is another one that is important to change. I believe the default setting is going to be select shapes touching drag box. Okay, so I'm going to select that and I'm going to show you what this does. Okay, so say you wanted to select the number 7 here with the box around it. If I hold down my left click and I'm drawing my selection box, okay, if I accidentally selected and went into the blue area for the 8, see how it automatically selected the number 8 and the box with it. Okay, and you're like, no, I just want to select the 7. Okay, but since it's very sensitive and anything that touches, your cursor touches an area, it's automatically going to select that. And that could be good or bad. Okay, so sometimes if you want to select a whole group of objects and you want to just, you want to do this and you just don't want to, completely bring this over here, you would just, select just part of this and it's automatically going to select all 3 of those things. I prefer not to have that happen. So I'm going to go into preferences again here. I'm going to go into my tools and I'm going to select, change this, and I'm going to change it to select shapes enclosed by drag box. Hit apply, select OK. Now if I want to select just the 7 and I accidentally just kind of go over to this blue box here, see how it's not selecting the 8 anymore. Okay, so that gives me more control over what I'm selecting. So now I can select this and I can move just this, and it didn't select the 8 or the box or any of the individual circles. it's only going to select everything that is completely enclosed in this box, the marquee box that you're selecting, dragging around the items that you want to select. So that's the difference between the two. So I prefer the option that I have currently set up here, instead of what the program defaults to. Same thing goes for, you want to make sure you have a single bounding box and not multiple bounding boxes. I'll show you what this would be, this option right here. This is a single bounding box. I will show you what the multiple bounding boxes look like. I'm going to select apply, okay. If I have multiple, see what this does? It creates an individual bounding box for every single one of those items. And because of this being a rhinestone file, it's going to create a box around every single one of those objects. So you definitely do not want that if your program's set up for something like that. I'm not quite sure if that was the default or if it's something I changed that to, but if you're having that issue, that's where you would change that. Go back into tools, and I'm going to select single and apply. When right-clicking subsequent shapes, new shape becomes selected. Let's see if I change this to original and what that does. So if I right click, I'm not quite sure what that one does, to tell you the truth. I'm right clicking on just the box, and both of them bring up the dialog box, so I'm not quite sure what that is, but we will just bring it back to I will do new shape becomes selected. Okay, the lasso style is the same thing as the example I showed you with the drag selecting box, except for when you do a lasso, which I am not sure where that's at, and I know where it's at. Okay, so if I have this at touches, your lasso tool is up here, and that's just another way of selecting something. So if you were to let's try to do a lasso around, let's do it around this 5. So I'm going to, if I were to draw a lasso and I accidentally touched that blue box for the 0, and I'm drawing a lasso, it would select some of the objects. It wouldn't select it doesn't look like it selected the blue box, but it selected some of the circles that I had in the 0, because I brought that line for the lasso and it touched those circles. So it actually put them in the grouping with the 5. Okay, so if you don't want that to happen, you're going to go into your preferences, tools, and you are going to change this to just enclosed. And that means that even if you accidentally touch those circles with the lasso line, unless you actually went around and enclosed those circles, it would not include them in as a selected item object inside your lasso circle. Okay, these have to do with editing tools, which are, the tools that you use over here. I don't use any of these, so you can play around with these and make changes if you want, but I believe that these are should be all your default settings. Updates, you can set weekly updates. You can check a box to include beta updates. I don't typically, I'm on an older version actually because it works fine. Every time they do an update, it seems like I read on these forums that, or Facebook groups, that it messes things up. So I'm working with an older version that works perfectly fine, so I have not updated anything. It manually asks me if I want to update. The advanced option here, which is the last one, this is where you can restore factory settings, you can restore preloaded designs, set library permissions. The only option that I really feel that that you should have checked here for sure is the software overcut. And what this does is this allows for the blade to cut beyond the starting point from where it started cutting. So when you're cutting a circle, it would go around the circle and go past the point from where your blade first started cutting. And what that does is that will completely create a finished circle cut, or any object that you're cutting for any part of your design. If you do not have this cut, basically it would start at one point and then it would end right at where the blade first started cutting. And what happens is those two connections, your starting cut and your ending cut, might not completely come together. And what that does is that could leave just a tiny bit of material that's not completely cut. That makes it harder to weed your material. So that overcut kind of allows for that object to be cut and complete, and it's easier for you to weed your material. So make sure that that's a setting that you have checked. Again, anything you change, make sure you select apply first, select OK, and then if you find that a setting maybe you don't feel like it took, go ahead, close out your program, restart it. That should bring that setting to where you made that change or whatnot. So I hope this information was helpful, and have a great day.